I started floating toward that very, very dark space, the pain was horrific. And the closer I got to that space, the more pain there was. It was just this horrific pain. And it got to a point where I just I couldn't deal with the pain. It was just too much. It took over me. And I just cried out, please forgive me. And in that instant, I was enveloped with this incredible, beautiful, loving light that just accepted me for all my mess. It was absolutely unconditional. It was peace. It was just this space where I knew I was home.
One look, and I breathe.
Thank you for joining the Awakening to Love podcast, where I bring to you a near-death experiencer, Sara Banning. Sara had a near-death experience over maybe about 30 years ago at this point. And before she had her near-death experience, she was actually living in a very abusive relationship. And she herself had had a very abusive childhood and believed that she was the drama, that she was the fear, that she was the negative emotions. However, after her near-death experience, she knew that she was a spirit being having this earthly experience. So now we're going to go right into this interview that I had with Sara, where she maps out her journey in her own words.
All right. So it was New Year's Eve. I was due Christmas Day with my baby, and I hadn't gone into labor yet. New Year's Eve, I started going into labor. I ended up at the hospital New Year's Day, and I had developed a situation where I couldn't give natural birth, so they decided to do a C-section. The fellow I was living with left to buy cigarettes. This is 30 years ago. And they wheeled me down to OR, and they left me in OR in labor by myself, in pre-op, by myself, dealing with my labor. And I didn't know what I was doing, and I started just going through the pain. Everything started speeding up because I knew I was having a C-section. And by the time they got me to the actual operating table, I began to panic. And when the nurse in front of me said to the doctor behind me, "Excuse me, doctor, but can't you tell your patient's panicking?" I completely lost faith. I was absolutely terrified. I felt like a deer in a headlight. I could feel my eyes bugging out of my head. And the pain of my past and everything just came to a head. And I just cried out, "God, I want to die." And I meant it right to the depth of my soul. I meant it, I want to die. That's it. And I remember falling back into my bed, sort of mentally, and then looking off to the left. And it was a very dark space. And as I started floating toward that very, very dark space, the pain was horrific. And the closer I got to that space, the more pain there was. It was just this horrific pain. And it got to a point where I just couldn't deal with the pain. It was just too much. It took over me. And I just cried out, please forgive me. And in that instant, I was enveloped with this incredible, beautiful, loving light that just accepted me for all my mess. It was absolutely unconditional. It was peace. It was just this space where I knew I was home. I knew that I was home. I was safe. Everything was going to be okay. And there was this light up, this crest of the light. And as I started floating to the light, I was reminded of all these things. It was and I can't tell you even to this day what it was, but I just kept going, oh, I knew that. And then, oh, I knew that too. And, it was I just knew I was home. And as I floated along and got to the crest of this beautiful light where I stopped, and this this hand reached out to me on the left side, this clothed person, I couldn't see the face, reached out to me with their hand and said, "Are you sure this is what you want?" And in that instant, it was like, no, I need to go back and do what I was meant to do. And that's everything just started spinning around faster and faster. The light, the dark, all of it, the love, the whole thing just started spinning really, really, really quickly. And I turned into sort of this tornado and came back in through the top of my head, back into my body. And I remember looking up and going, oh, I'm under anesthetic. I could see the bubbles, and I could see, you know, like it was like raindrops on a puddle. And I was looking at that, and I had a high-pitched hum in my ear, and I just thought, oh, okay, I'm under anesthetic. And I just settled back into my body. And as I settled back into my body, it was like I really didn't want to be there. I didn't want to be in that physical body, but I knew that I had to be there. I knew that I had a purpose and that I needed to be there. And the next thing I remembered was being woken up in pre-op or post-op and being told that I'd had this 9-pound, 10-ounce baby girl. And yeah, my life was completely different. I mean, that night, my partner came back to see me. He was dark. He was rude to me. I didn't want him in my room. I didn't see the baby with him or anything like that. They brought my baby girl to me. And the next day I woke up and I just had this absolute peace with me, this love and this taste of sweet peas in my mouth. And I just felt so peaceful. And for 5 days I was in the hospital because of the C-section. I didn't want to go back to the house. I didn't want to go back into the life I was living, but I didn't feel that I had any choices. You know, this is 30 years ago, and you know, in that time there wasn't a lot of options, and there wasn't internet, there wasn't any of that. So it was just, I just felt that I had to go back to the house. And it was really, really challenging. He had 2 children that I was taking care of before going through the birth. He worked 16-hour days. He was in the movie industry. And I was left with having a C-section, taking care of 3 children. And then he brought home a new puppy that he wanted me to take care of. And I that's when I lost it. I just I can't do this. And so I started, it was like this, like I flipped into the audience and I looked at what I was doing. I was like, I can't do this. And so I got rid of, the puppy went back to where it needed to go. The children were crazy. I took them to social services. I had them interviewed, and it turned out that they were apprehended by the social services. They were sent back to the mother, and it was discovered that these children were actually being ritualistically abused. For 2 years later, I found out that had happened. My daughter started showing signs. I went back to the house because I didn't know where else to go. And she started showing signs of the abuse as well. And so I took her from the home, ended up protecting her. But it was the most terrifying time of my life because I was living in this dark life, but then I had this experience of the light. And, I kept going back and forth and trying to figure out what was my reference point, because I didn't have one anymore. I didn't have internet. I didn't have anybody to talk to. I went to 5 different churches, talked to pastors, and I went to Bible studies trying to figure out what was going on, and I was hoping somebody could give me an answer, and I just couldn't get the answer. And one evening, I came to a point where I was in this very dark space. I will probably start crying. Very dark space, and I had 1 foot on the balcony and 1 foot in the condo. And I remember going the outside was too big, the inside was too small, and I was freaking out, in absolute paranoia. And I looked over in the corner, and there was this Bible and this is the actual Bible that this lady had given to me in one of the Bible studies. And I flipped the Bible open, and there it was Deuteronomy. Let's flip it right there again too. Deuteronomy 3, verse 22, and what was underlined in red, and it's exactly how it was right there. It said, "Do not fear them, for the Lord your God is the one fighting for you." And then it was, "But from there you will seek the Lord your God, and you will find him if you search for him with all your heart and all your soul." And in that instant, I knew that somebody else was watching after me. And that was the beginning of my journey of healing. What I started realizing was that I had two ways to live. I could live in the pain of the drama in my life, or I could live in the audience and looked at the drama and the pain as a play, and that I started using. I would go into the drama, I would feel the pain, I would step out, and I would use that pain to go back to my childhood and start releasing abuse and bullying and all those things that I had gone through as a child. And it was just this 20-year journey of back in the pain, back out of the pain, and it would be, when I first started doing it, it would be 2 to 3 weeks where I'd be stuck in that pain. And then I would step out and go, oh, why do I keep doing it? Like, why is it taking me so long? And it just came to a point where it was like almost within the day I would go, okay, wait a minute, this isn't right. And one of the things that you shared with me was, feeling that suicide and that depression. And that's one of the key triggers for me, was that when I was feeling that feeling, I knew that I was going to go through a transition. That was the bottom of the barrel, and it was like, okay, there's something really deep here that I need to look at. What's going on? What's in the drama? I need to look at that, and I need to go back and figure out what exactly that is connected to. And so then I met this beautiful, lovely psychologist, and she taught me some techniques on how to release the emotion that was connected to the events from my childhood. And I just started doing that on my own. And then I took an NLP, neuro-linguistic process, and I started changing the limited beliefs that were attached to those events. And through that process, the last 10 years has just been incredible. I'm in a place where I'm in a place where it's so interesting. I either trigger people, or they see me and they go, "Oh, I think I've met you before. You're very familiar to me."
I get that too. Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, I don't, I don't know. But I know what's happening is that I'm reflecting themselves back to themselves, so they kind of know themselves, right? And so I'm reflecting that back, or I put people in a place where they're like, they just like, but so that's a lot of that's my story. I actually, at one point, it was I'm so guided, as I was going through the beginnings of trying to figure out, what had actually happened to me. I was guided to turn the TV on, and this is in 94. No, it had to be 93, 94. I was guided to turn the TV on, and there was a Nova show, and there were all these people sitting around the table that had near-death experiences, and they were sharing their journey and their experiences with cancer patients, because at that point cancer was terminal. And so they were sharing the story of the light and trying to give these people peace and comfort about where they were, going.
Yeah.
And it was like flipped the TV. I literally just turned the TV on. That was on. I grabbed the VCR, which I still have. I flipped it into the machine. I turned record. I still have that actual show recorded. And for the first time, I was like, oh my God, I'm not crazy. Like, I'm not crazy. Like, I didn't talk to anybody about what happened to me because I was sure they're going to put me in a white jacket and I was getting up in the hospital. So yeah, so that's pretty well the journey that I've been through.
Wow, and I'm grateful for you sharing that. And I think one of the things that comes to mind is, do you know how long you were under, or that you had left your body?
No, I don't have any idea, but what I do know was that and the doctor, I went back to the doctor and I said, you can't, this is life-changing. You cannot not tell people that they have died. You have to tell them.
Yeah.
And the nurse that came in, the nurse said, actually, when I was in transition and left in pre-op, there was this angel nurse. She came with this beautiful Jamaican accent. She knew that I was in peril.
Mhm.
And she came back the next day and said, are you okay? And I said, I know I died. It's okay. I know I died. And she just kind of sheepishly shut down and walked out of the room, but I knew I'd actually had a seizure.
Okay.
I was gestational diabetes. They hadn't identified that.
Mhm.
And I had a seizure and went into cardiac arrest.
So, and when you were on the other side, did you, at times, I just did an interview yesterday with someone that said they were by themselves, but they could sense others, that there's some who it was just them. And even I guess they just intuitively felt it was just for them to have that experience. Did you get a sense that there were other souls there with you as well?
There were definitely other souls, but there was no identification.
Mhm.
They were the ones that were, sharing with me that, I believe what they were sharing with me was that you are a spiritual being having this earthly experience, and that you've forgotten that because of, abuse started when I was 3, and, I shut down that spiritual side of me. Although there's pictures of me at 2 years old where that I've got a fire under my belly, that I lost that because of what I had gone through. So I was being reminded, like, you're a beautiful being. You're not the drama. You're not that experience.
Mhm.
And that's what, and then just being filled with that absolute acceptance. I was still a mess. Like, I was still this mess, but it was okay. It was like, it was okay. And that was what the biggest healing for me was, that acceptance of me in that mess. And, like, no, the mess isn't you. You're
Right.
the being having that messy experience.
Right. Do you feel some sense of guidance? Because I know that you talked about getting to the point where you're at that balcony and you grab that Bible. Do you feel some sense of being led?
You have
Now,
a friend of mine passed away, and he was an ex-boyfriend, passed away in a motorcycle, and I knew he was going to. I was told 3 months before it happened, I was told he's going to die in a motorcycle accident. And I've had experiences. I was drugged at one point, quite some time ago, and I was literally guided to get out of the situation.
So tell us about, because you've written some books, and now you're in the coaching space. I'm assuming you were not in the coaching space before. So tell us about the books. Tell us about what you do with your coaching clients, and then I'll ask you how people can get in touch with you. So
I haven't been doing coaching because I really am working on doing a TEDx. Like, this story, it needs to be shared. I've written one book. I'm working on the second one. The first book was really, it was just a healing journey for me to write down everything I had gone through. I have a lot of people that identify with it because there's like, there's parts of it that will connect with everybody.
Right.
It's and I do share the technique that I do. It's not as evolved as it is now. Like, I've really honed in on one of the things I used to do is have the adult go and rescue the little child, but the key that I've discovered is that little child needs to rescue the adults.
So Sara, with, like myself, having reached out to you, because stories like yours have had a humongous impact on me. For my listeners who will be watching this, and they may see themselves in your story, or may find in something you said, something pulling them to reach out for maybe something that you do. Maybe they're going through something similar that you're going through. How can people get in touch with you?
Well, there's two ways. I've got an email, 31 Dimes from Heaven at gmail.com, which is the title of my book.
Now, is it the number 31 or the spelling 30?
No, it's number 31
Dimes. Okay, gotcha.
And it's my married name was McClellan, which I don't go by anymore. And then the other one is Present Living Academy at gmail.com, which is another a space that I hold right now. I'm in transition, so I'm not sure how that's all, but there I am on Facebook with Present Living Academy as well. And 31 Dimes from Heaven is on Amazon. It is available.
Awesome.
You can purchase it. Yeah.
So thank you. So that's for those who are watching, that's an opportunity for you to learn more about Sara's journey and what some of the tools that she uses and has used in her own life and with maybe other people that she's connected with, to be able to shift her life from where it was to where it is now. So definitely take an opportunity to email her, find her book on Amazon, and so forth. I'll say this last. Any before we depart, any words of wisdom that you want to share with us, or insights?
The most important thing is realizing that you're actually this beautiful spiritual being having this earthly experience.
Yeah.
And if you can, and I can give you a perfect example of going into the audience. You come home, you have your keys in your hand, you put your keys down, you actually look at where those keys are. You actually mentally look at where you've put your keys. You will know where your keys are. And when you actually look at those keys, you're in the present moment. And that's the key to living. And when you are in the audience, you're also in the present moment, looking at your life, at the drama or whatever's going on. And when you're in that present moment, you're actually in heaven on earth. You're actually connected to your spirit, connected to your higher power, however you want to describe that, whether it's God or Buddha or whatever, or you, or however that works. But when you're in the present moment, that is when you are heaven on earth. That's when you are connected to the spirit. And that's when you're going to get the answers.
Thank you so much, Sara. I want you to hold for a moment, and I just, as I say to all of my listeners, I love you, I appreciate you, and I will see you on the next Awakening to Love podcast. Namaste.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sara.